welcome back to another video. I have been wanting to do a video like this for a long time, and right off the bat this was inspired by Sarah Caroli's series. I believe it's called Booked In, where she goes to different locations and reads books that were set there. I already had this trip planned, and so after I saw those videos I thought it would be fun to do the same type of thing where I find a book that was set the location that I was going on vacation and did a whole video around it. As you can tell from the title, I went to Los Angeles. This was my first trip away from my baby since he was born, and it was so nice to just have a little weekend getaway with my mom, a little girls trip. I've never been to Los Angeles before, and so I was really excited to go and see some of the monuments and places that I've heard so much about. And I was really excited to go and experience it for myself. When I knew I was going, I decided that I wanted to read a book that was set there. And so I went through so many options of different books that were set in LA to try and decide what I wanted to read. And I finally decided on The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I decided on this book for so many reasons. I feel like it was huge on Book Talk and BookTube for so long, and I had never gotten around to reading it. And I also love Daisy Jones and the Six. That was like an instant 5-star read for me. Still to this day, that is one of my favorite books that I've ever read. And so I was really excited to jump into The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, especially on this trip, because it was really cool to make some connections while I was in the location where this was set. It is about Evelyn Hugo. She was born very poor in New York, and she built her way up, climbed the ladder into being one of the most famous and successful actresses in her time. So this is very old Hollywood. In this story, she is near the end of her life. She's very old. It's many years after a lot of the events have happened in the book, and she finally decides that she wants to tell her story, and she reaches out to a very low-level reporter at a popular magazine. She said that she's just read her work and wanted to only share her story with this character. Her name is Monique, and she is the one who is listening to Evelyn telling her story, as she really gives a tell-all of everything that people have questioned her on her entire life. This goes into all 7 of her marriages, the love of her life, her best friends, her child, and really everything in between. I did have an interesting time picking this book because I kept going back and forth between this book and a few options that were set in the current day. And I ultimately decided on The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo for a few reasons. One main one being that we stayed in a very popular historic hotel. And if you know where I'm going with that, we ended up staying at the Biltmore LA. And if you don't know a little bit about that, I'm going to share some facts with you. This hotel is very cool. When I first walked in, I felt like I was going back to the time when this book took place. This book starts in the 50s, and then it goes up until it ends in the 2010s, I'm pretty sure. And so this hotel was a big reason why I ended up going with the book that I did. This is where the Academy Awards, or as we now know them as the Oscars, took place for many, many years. Not only did it take place there, but also the actual Oscar, the statue, was designed on a napkin at this hotel. It is also the location of where many movies, music videos, television shows were filmed. For example, for my Swifties out there, this is the hotel that the Delicate music video took place at. Some other things that were filmed here: 10 Things I Hate About You, Bachelor Party, Beverly Hills Cops, Cruel Intentions, Daredevil, Ghostbusters was filmed there, and there was pictures of these movies that were filmed there all over the hotel as well. A Star is Born was filmed there, The Wedding Crashers, 90210 was filmed there, The Golden Girls, The Good Place, Grey's Anatomy. Basically, a lot of really cool things happened here in the entertainment industry. I can't even tell you how many times I was reading this book and I was like, oh my gosh, this is totally the exact type of place that Evelyn Hugo would have gone. Who knows, she could have been here in the ballroom during the Academy Awards when she received her Oscar. It felt like every day when we came back to our hotel, I was entering the same time as the book that I was reading. It made such a magical reading experience, And if you ever are going on a vacation or have a trip coming up, please, please, please try and find a book that is set where you are going, because it just makes the experience so different than just reading a book. It really helps put the scenery and the setting of the book to life. Also, I'm filming this at this point. I've come home from my trip. We were only there for a few days and we really did jam pack so much into our trip while we were there. So I did not have as much time to film about my commentary because we were really coming home at like midnight to 1 a.m. every day. We would leave in the morning and then we had stuff planned all day, all night until we got home. And then by that point, I was truly exhausted. I read about a third of the book on the way there, a third of the book while I was in LA, and a third of the book on the way home. So I finished the entire book by the time we got back, and it was just such a cool experience. I even was highlighting places in my book that we're seeing as it happened. One of the coolest things, she was working on a movie with Warner Brothers, and me and my mom went and did a Warner Brothers studio tour. I cannot even tell you how cool it was to be reading about her as an actress doing a movie and at the same time going to do a studio tour in Hollywood where these movies are filmed. And we were able to see so much background to some of the real historic movies that were filmed at Warner Brothers. One of the coolest ones that we saw was My Fair Lady, and it really brought me back to when she was doing some of her older movies, her first ones, and was talking about these major roles that were kind of her big break. And we were able to see, you know, My Fair Lady when it was filmed, and background photos and the costuming and how that movie was made. And I could totally see Evelyn Hugo just playing in a role like that. It was such a full circle moment to be able to read about her experience navigating that, and then seeing how this film was made in real life and kind of comparing, like, I wonder what Audrey Hepburn was going through, you know, when she was filming, how she got her big break. Was it as grueling as the process spoke about in The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo? There were so many actresses that I was kind of comparing Evelyn Hugo's story to. Like, for example, Elizabeth Taylor, she had 8 marriages to 7 different husbands. So I think there was inspiration taken from Elizabeth Taylor to create Evelyn Hugo. Not only her, but Marilyn Monroe, the signature blonde hair, tan skin look. So I had all of these characters in my mind that reminded me so much of the main character of the book. We even went to, I believe it's the Chinese Theater, which is a very historic site as well. There's handprints from actors and actresses all the way from 1900 to present day. And one of those was Marilyn Monroe. She had written into the sidewalk and it said, "Gentlemen prefer blondes," and it was signed Marilyn Monroe. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so Evelyn. Being able to make those connections while reading this book and learning about her story and knowing how much depth there was behind her, and not just, you know, the physical, sensual persona that she had around her, but actually everything that was going on behind the scenes of who she actually was, what she stood for, and how much she was willing to do for those people around her. It really made me think back on these actresses and the types of lives they had behind the screens. To get into the actual story of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, this was extremely different than I was thinking it was going to be. There were so many of her marriages that she really wasn't afraid to do what she had to do to progress for herself and the people that she loves. And I think that it took a lot of strength for her to be able to sacrifice so much of herself in order to do that for her and her family. A lot of that got misconstrued or misinterpreted from the media during that time because they just thought that she was just marrying around and there was no rhyme or reason to it. But when you read the book, you really see the depth that went into every decision that she was making. I did get some clips while I was in LA while I was reading the book, so cue that. Okay, so it is the end of our first full day in LA. Today we went down so many of the locations that it's talking about in the book. We went to Rodeo Drive. I've been writing down locations in the book and I've been making note of it as we've gone to them, and there's been so many that we've gone to that have been mentioned. It's so cool. And she was even talking about that they were like driving down Sunset, and we drove down there today. So I'm about a third of the way through the book now, and where I'm at, she's on her second husband, but they're getting a divorce Can I say that? No, that's not a spoiler. It's the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. You know there's gonna be a divorce with the second husband. But I was actually like so sad for her because like the first husband that she has, like you kind of understand her position. She's getting out of an abusive household. With the second one, like she actually really did love her second husband and he ended up being a so that was really sad. And then it was just kind of so crazy to see that she was like so famous and everybody wanted to be her. And then in the end, like she is getting a divorce by the man that everybody in the world looks up to from his movies. So there's like a quote that's talking about basically money isn't everything. And today we were at the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And we like saw all of these movie stars from like the 1950s and around that time period. And it totally seemed like Evelyn Hugo could have just been one of them because how Taylor Jenkins Reid writes does make it seem like she's a real person. That's what I love about her books because it was the same thing with Daisy Jones and the Six. You thought it was like a real band. I knew obviously that this wasn't a real person going into the book, but reading it, you would have had no idea. She was such a complex character and it really had you conflicted because sometimes she's making these decisions that really morally can't get behind, but you understand where she was coming from enough that you have this empathy for Evelyn in the decisions that she was making. There are scenes that make you love her, there are scenes that make you hate her. And overall, by the end of the story, I feel like you are very conflicted on the type of person that she is, but at the same time, you have no choice but to love her. And I think that really paints her character pretty perfectly. One of the lines in the book that really spoke out to me was talking about how you can have as much money in the world and still not have what you want in life. And I think that really goes into one of the themes in this story about what's really important in life. And Evelyn really ended up learning that by the end of her life of what was really important to her once she had had all of the success and accolades that she had desired. If I were her, I don't know if I could have done some of the things that she did, but she made tough decisions, not just decisions that were tough for the people around her, but were tough and sacrificing for herself. I don't know if I could have done that, marrying 7 men. I think at some point, I just would have had to decide that marriage wasn't for me. But she really had a reason behind everything that she did. The men that she married obviously were for different reasons. Some of the most heartbreaking were the men that she really did truly love. Her second husband, she went into that marriage having true love for the man that she married, only to find out that he was not the man that she thought that he was. Every man that she tried to marry for love did not end up going the way that she expected. I don't want to say more than that. Out of all the husbands, my favorite was obviously Harry Cameron. The love that they did have for each other was true, while it was a little different and unconventional. They were best friends and they made each other's dreams come true. I think I would probably give this book, because I will say I finished it a few days ago, but I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since I finished it. So I would honestly probably give this book 4.5 to 4.75 stars. It was mesmerizing, captivating, and it was so much fun to read in LA. It made me feel like me, myself, was staying in this old, glamorous, glitzy Hollywood that Evelyn was staying in during her time. I wish we had more background to Monique and her story and some of her relationships to make a few of the things that happen in her storyline a little bit more gripping. Other than that, I really did love this book, and I highly recommend reading a book that takes place where you go to vacation, because it made the experience just so much more fun, and it kind of helped me narrow in on certain things to look out for. I seriously did have such a great time. I will definitely be doing this again. So let me show you a little bit about my time in LA. Thank you so much for watching this video. This is one of my favorite videos that I've ever filmed and put together. It was so much fun for me to be able to experience the setting of a book in such a real way. Again, another shout out to Sarah Caroli for the inspiration behind this video. I will tag her channel down below. You should definitely go watch the videos that she has made, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If there's any other video ideas or things that you would like me to do or books you'd like me to read, feel free to comment them down below because I would love to see your suggestions. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I will see you next time.